In this lesson, we're going to look at how you structure your advertising campaigns in a Google Ad Grants account. You will need to structure your campaigns in a very specific way. In an ad grant account, it's a good idea to have as few campaigns as possible. You only need to create separate accounts if there is a compelling reason to do so. Language is one reason to put your ads into separate campaigns. If, for example, you are going to run ads in Spanish and ads in English, they will need to be in separate campaigns. There's a reason for this. In Google Ads, you can only target people by language at the campaign level. You can also only target geographical regions at campaign level. If you have ads that you need to show in one country or one city, and then ads that you need to show in a completely different place, those will need to be separate campaigns. Another compelling reason to put your ads into separate campaigns is if they have a completely different audience and if the goal of the campaign is very different. To give you a common example, healthcare nonprofits might well have a separate campaign for health professionals than for the general public and patients. The reason for that is that Google will pick up on completely different signals from those two groups. Their hours that they use the internet, the search terms they use. Health professionals are likely to be using medical jargon. The public are more likely to use the common terms. Also, you're likely to be taking them to different sections of your website, and the goal will probably be different. You might be wanting the health professionals to sign up for one newsletter, but you want the public to sign up for a different one. So therefore you would separate them. Looking at this example, this is a nutrition and health nonprofit. Let's see how they have organized their campaigns. And we have 5 campaigns. One of them is the Spanish language campaign. Well, that has to be separate, just because it's a different language targeting at the campaign level. Then we have a general training program for the public. This takes people to lessons where they can learn about nutrition. We have a separate campaign for the health professionals. It's not only taking them to a different section of the website. Once there, they will follow a very different process. The public get free courses, health professionals pay. So they have to go for a sign-up process. So the goal of this campaign is so different that it deserves to be separate from the public one. Then we have a separate campaign for the brand and some evergreen ads that are always running, and also some ads pointed at blog articles. This isn't about training. It's really quite a different audience. It's mainly for people who are aware of the organization. And finally, we have a campaign for teens and young adults, a very different audience to the others. In fact, this is mainly aimed at teachers. The issue with creating too many campaigns as an ad grant is mainly conversions. Conversions are the fuel that power your campaigns and that help the bid strategy to learn. If you don't get enough conversions every month per campaign, they're not really going to optimize well. Ad grant rules say you must have at least 1 conversion per campaign per month. And if I take a look at here, for example, I see that in the last 30 days, there have been 871, we have a fraction here, but let's say 872 conversions for the public training course. Wow, that's plenty. And it doesn't cost as much either. It only costs $20 to get each conversion. That campaign can optimize very well. It's got a high click-through rate. It's working nicely. By the way, something I should point out about this, in case any of you are doing the math on this, it's an Ad Grant Pro account. It's one of the old ones that has 4 times the usual spend. Hence the rather high clicks and spend and conversions. The other campaigns are also getting enough conversions to power them, getting 23, 27, 50. This is pretty good. Now, you're not going to get those numbers, most likely, but as long as you get, say, 10, 15, 20 per campaign, your campaign should optimize fine. One of these campaigns isn't getting conversions, and that's the Spanish language lessons. We've not really got much emphasis on this. We only got 64 clicks last month and no conversions. So this one is a bit underpowered and not really optimizing very well. If you want to create a new campaign, you can click on the big blue plus sign, which you get in any screen where you can create anything. You have two options there. One is to create a new campaign from scratch, but the other's kind of clever. It will load campaign settings. Now, what it's going to do is it's not going to duplicate another campaign. It's just going to start a new, fresh, empty campaign with the same settings. So, for example, if I was to use the load campaign settings for the Spanish language campaign, then what would happen is it would start up. I'll click to show you. I'll choose the Spanish language. It's going to start up with targeting for the US, but the language will be Spanish. In a new campaign, always give it a proper name, and give a proper name to every one of your ad groups as well. If you don't, your structure is going to get confusing. Let's run through some of these settings here. So when you're creating a new campaign, one thing you won't be able to do is tick these boxes. In an ad grant, you're only allowed to put your ads into search results. You can't put it in some of the other places that a paid advertiser could. You're not missing out here because these options wouldn't be particularly good and useful anyway. Then we get an option asking if we want to have automatically created assets. I recommend always, whenever you're prompted, and Google will find several different ways to prompt you, you turn this off. You don't want Google creating any assets, extensions by itself. Do not let Google use its own initiative. The results would be poor. You want to have control over all of those aspects. A campaign can have a start date and an end date. If this is for an event and you don't want the ads to start until a few days' time, you can do that. If you want to put an end date on the campaign, you certainly can. Very useful for things like end of year fundraising campaigns. Very useful for any kind of event. I'm ignoring some of these settings because they're not especially useful at the moment. The dynamic search ad setting is something that you will just set once. I recommend that you actually fill in your website domain here. So you would just do your domain in this format. You don't need to put the HTTPS. It shows you an example here. This will be useful maybe later if you decide to create dynamic search ads within this campaign. There is a separate lesson in this course that teaches you what a dynamic search ad, what a DSA is. For now, we can just put the domain in and forget that. I recommend you start off showing your ads all day. You might want to optimize this a bit later. If you find that you're using the entire ad grant budget on most days, but there are certain hours of the day or certain days when people don't convert, or when the stats are worse in some way, then you might want to put an ad schedule on. Choose particular days, particular times when your ads run or don't run. But to begin with, all day, every day. In the campaign settings, you can choose a location for your ads to be seen. So this is also called geotargeting. In this case, we're targeting Mexico and the United States, which makes sense when this is a Spanish language campaign. I'm going to show you that there's more than one way to target. Let's do an advanced search. So you can target a specific country. So I can type in Djibouti and then click to target it. You could also click to exclude. I rarely do that. there has to be a compelling reason. You certainly don't need to go and exclude every country or every place you don't want ads shown in. I can also target a city or a town. So I can target a state. I can target Newcastle upon Tyne. And as you do this, the areas you're targeting will appear on the map. And if I scroll out, we should see that we are now targeting Newcastle upon Tyne in the UK and the entirety of the United States and Mexico. Then there's something called radius targeting. We can target people to see your ads within a certain distance of your nonprofit, its offices, its services. So if I type in, for example, London, UK, within 20 miles of London, people can see this ad. Now, that's very handy for example, if you're recruiting volunteers, if you're trying to advertise a job vacancy, because people are only going to travel so far. If you are an organization, let's say like a church, which has a limited geographical reach in terms of people visiting, or a homeless shelter, then it's useful to do this. And you can change the number of miles away. So I can reduce that area to 10 miles. I can increase it to 100 miles if I want to. Whatever makes sense for your organization and its services. We can target the languages. Now, I created this based on an existing campaign settings, so it's copied over the Spanish language, which makes sense. We can add audiences to our campaigns. There will be a separate lesson in this course about audience targeting. All you need to know for now is that Google has lots of built-in audiences of people that you can target. There's big, broad buckets of people that Google generally thinks match certain signals. So, for example, it's actually giving us some suggestions here. Healthcare industry, healthcare education, health and medical jobs, nursing education. All of those make complete sense to me if we were targeting medical professionals. We're actually targeting the public on this particular campaign, so I may or may not choose to do that. The intriguing one is home educating parents to me. Bearing in mind that we are doing nutrition courses for young people as well, that would be very useful to add in that other campaign, but maybe not this one. And there are a lot of these. You will find ones for swimming and running, people interested in green living, Mother's Day shopping. There's a long, long list. Not all of them are useful to nonprofits. It's worth going through this list. You can browse through to find out more about who's in here. But there is a separate lesson on this, so let's not get bogged down right now. And if you do add any, add them in observation mode to begin with. That isn't going to narrow down who sees your ad, but it's going to let you collect data on those particular audiences to decide whether later you might want to switch to this targeting option. When you set your budget, it's a very simple rule, $329 per day per campaign. You don't have to have all your campaigns add up to $329, as a lot of people think, because the ad grant will cap the total spend at $329 no matter what you put in here. In fact, if you want to, you could put $1 million. And Google here is warning me that's a rather large increase. Indeed it is. And for bidding, there is a separate lesson in this course about that. What you need to know now is that you should be using a conversion-based bidding strategy. It's a complex topic. In fact, there's an entire section of this course about conversion tracking. If you're in the first 90 days, you might be setting this to a manual bidding strategy, where you can never bid more than $2 for a click. But over time, you're likely to be choosing a different option. In this case, exactly as you see here, we will be using maximize conversions, probably without the target to begin with. and then we'd save and continue. For each campaign that you have set up, over time you will gather statistics. The first thing you'll be looking for is to get impressions. An impression is simply that your ad has been shown. And then you'll be wanting to get clicks, which is when the ad has not just been shown but someone clicked on it. And then we have other statistics, which we have a separate lesson about how to analyze your results that you should watch. Within each campaign, you will need to create multiple ad groups. Let me click on one of these campaigns, the health professional one, and see which ad groups we have within there. Each ad group represents a discrete, separate topic with as little overlap as possible with other ad groups and their topics. So we are targeting health professionals with ads about a nutrition course, clinical nutrition, nutrition education, nutrition for nurses, a nutrition podcast, and so on. These are named. The naming structure you use is up to you. Whatever you choose, be consistent and make sure that not just you can understand this, but anyone else who should ever work on the account. I know from the way I've named this that this is for professionals, and in this ad group all the keywords will be about nutrition course. Within each ad group you will find keywords. The usual recommendation is to create between 10 to 15 keywords per ad group. There are times when you may wish to use fewer. If this is an ad group for the brand name, you might just have 2 or 3 keywords in there. You might sometimes wish to try a lot more, but they must be tightly themed. So I expect to find in here only keywords that represent the concept of a nutrition course. And looking at the keywords, I find nutrition course online, CME online courses, that's continuing medical education if I remember correctly, health nutrition courses online, and online CME. So these are pretty relevant to the concept. And you will find for each one of these keywords a whole host of stats that you can analyze. Within that ad group, we have the keywords and an ad. Here's the ad. So the ad is a responsive search ad. That's the format Google uses for search ads now. A responsive search ad is composed of up to 15 headlines and 4 descriptions, which are shown semi-randomly. There's a lesson in this course entirely about how to create a responsive search ad. I just want to show the structure now, so come back and watch that one separately. You have a URL of the landing page. Now, you don't have to use the same landing page every time. Don't send everybody to your home page. Send people to the page on your website that's most relevant to the keywords and to the ad text, and send them to a page that has a call to action on it. There must be an action that people can take that you're tracking as a conversion, or it's pointless to send them there. So here we go, 15 headlines, 4 descriptions. So we have campaigns. Within each campaign, multiple ad groups. Within each ad group, one ad and multiple keywords. And by the way, the keywords are in a separate section. It's not very intuitive, this, and they moved there recently. There's been some changes to the interface. So you now have to go down to the audiences, keywords and content section to find your keywords, which is also where you'll find your audiences. There is one other component of a campaign that you need to know about, and that's the assets. I don't like this word. Until recently, Google called these extensions. I think extensions is a much better name because that is literally what they do. They extend the ad by adding extra information, extra images, and extra links that people can click. There's a separate lesson in this course about how to manage your different assets. For now, I'll just show you that this is where you'll find the images that you can attach to ads, the business name, the business logo, the site links, which are additional links that people can click on, additional headlines that you can test and descriptions you can test, a phone number, your location, even prices if you're selling something. What's important to grasp here is that these can be added at various different levels. So, for example, if I click on the business name, it's added at account level, and so is the business logo. Images, however, have been added at campaign level. Now, the reason for that is simple, that this campaign, these are sensible images to add. We might want to use completely different images in, for example, the teens and young persons course. So that campaign uses images that are more attractive to a younger audience. So it's quite important to grasp this concept that you have an account level where something can be added to the entire account or relevant to the entire account, or campaign level, in other words one specific campaign, ad group level, ad level, or keyword level. It's not just for the assets that you'll be adding, it's also that when you are getting reports and trying to get stats, you will very often be asked whether you want to do this at account level or per campaign or per ad group.